In terms of where to start, my favorite thing is having a plan. So a lot of the listeners right now will likely have heard of something that is called a book proposal. And a lot of people are like, okay, well, I'm not there yet to have a book proposal. But in reality, a book proposal will help you get to that point where you have a manuscript. And book proposal sounds very intimidating because usually you hear that in the terms of like, I have a book, I have a manuscript, and I'm getting ready to pitch an agent. But in reality, if you break down what a book proposal is, it's actually a book plan. It's a roadmap. If you look at a book proposal in the sense that of what the bits and pieces are that they have, it will allow you to organize your thoughts and say, okay, here's what I think this book is about. Here is a section where I write who the right, target audience is for my book. And if you start thinking this book is for everyone, then no. Start again. The book, it has to be specifically for one person that you're thinking about. That is your target audience. And there's a cluster of people. It's a niche audience. It could be. But you have to talk to somebody in order for that story to really resonate. You have to start thinking about the marketing plan because, you're thinking probably like, why do I need a marketing plan if I don't have a book or a marketing or a manuscript yet? The reality is that you're thinking about it now. Then you need to start considering yourself an author and talking about it to that audience. I would definitely start working on a book proposal sooner rather than later. It gives you the entire outline for your path. And when you're down the road, 3 months into it, 6 months into it, and you don't know where you are, how much you've done, you go back to your book proposal and you start reminding yourself of all the reasons why you're doing this book and the value it can deliver to that audience or why it's going to appeal to that target audience.
Oh, Zoom is our friend today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. I have a great resource for authors here today. You're going to learn something. So I would suggest strongly that you grab your coffee, your tea. We'll find a nice quiet spot for the next few minutes because we're going to talk about all things to assist authors in your journey. We're writing the next chapter. It's the name of the podcast, whatever. Vanessa's here with us today. And broadbookgroup.com is the website. You got to go there because there's a lot of great stuff. We're going to be talking about online courses and book marketing. And it's just going to be so much goodness today. Vanessa, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited because I think your audience is perfect for what we do in writing that next chapter. Is actually one of our taglines is helping entrepreneurs, authors, business owners, people who are interested in really putting pen to paper and writing their next chapter.
See, I love this. This is great. Synergy. Hey, there's the word, right?
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. Yin and yang, we're together. We're doing this. It's great. First of all, where are you in this great world of ours?
I am very lucky. I'm in Southern California.
Oh, gosh.
I know. We have been having a lot of weather. I hear that it's called. It's weather. We've been having a lot of rain, a lot of actual weather. It's been nice. It's been a few years since we've had a lot of water coming down on us. My business partner is actually in Illinois where the weather changes every hour. So, we have all of our team is spread throughout the country. So we get to share a lot of weather stuff.
Awesome. So how long has Broad Book Group been around?
We have been around since the beginning of the pandemic. Actually, we were one of the businesses that started around the pandemic. For better or for worse, we saw shifts in our own careers and personal journeys that we decided, you know what, it's time to move on from what we were doing, which was still in book publishing, to be fair. And we were starting to see a lot of the same kind of authors coming through our imprints that we were working at. And we were just thinking, you know what, there's not enough of X, there's not enough of Y. And we wanted to create a publishing company that was a little bit more hybrid, but with still the traditional options that a lot of authors don't get when they go a hybrid model, or if they decide to have a self-publishing journey, where we basically said, you know what, that's fine. You want to do your self-publishing journey. You want to own everything, the IP, because that is essentially one of the big reasons why people decide to self-publish. But, you want to make sure that you present your book to an audience as if it were a traditionally published book. It has to have the high markings of a good cover design by a cover designer. It has to have the good markings of an interior layout that makes sense for the genre that it is. And it has to have all those simple markings that, most people don't think about. The right type of barcode, ISBN number, considering the small things like the type of trim size or the book cover. So anyway, long story short, we wanted to bring the traditional market to an audience that was interested in publishing a book and not having to go through the traditional hoops.
Okay, so now I would love for you to just gush on your team, because sometimes we see an email from a team member from your group and we go, I really don't know who these people are. Can you just kind of explain to me a little bit about who makes up your team, some of their superpowers, so we get a sense of who we're working with when we send off an email to you guys?
Oh, absolutely. So you're likely going to work between myself and my co-founder, Dr. Jen Dorsey, who's been in book publishing for more than 20 years. She's been specializing in nonfiction, working in small presses and large presses. We're talking as small of a press like Bowtie down here in Orange County, an imprint that really focused around pets and animals, to working with Wiley, so the For Dummies series.
Mm-hmm.
She's worked on that. She's worked on history, tech, lifestyle, and she's an actual doctor of words. And she's the one that makes all of the words and the editorial markings to actually create a book. And I honestly couldn't do anything without her. She creates the books. We also have a team of designers that oversee the cover design. We have Andrew Welichko, who is he's an award-winning designer. In fact, one of the books that we just released last year recently won a few awards, and we were very, very proud of it. And it's a book about business-to-business SaaS pricing strategies. So you couldn't come up with a book that is less sexy of a topic, but right. This book really just kind of like stood out from the rest and really got you to start reading, which was really important because the author himself interweaves hip hop and his love for the music in a way that makes sense with pricing strategies, which kind of just blew our minds. So we knew we needed something great. So that's Andrew Welichko and his work. And then we also work a little bit into the large format coffee table covers and images for, photojournalist books, photojournalism, documentaries, that kind of stuff. And another one of our designers is Vicky Von Shea. She is, that's her specialty, is beautiful coffee table books that really bring to life the history and really just the emotion that you get when you're going through like this very tiny niche in just a part of history that you didn't even think about. And she just does an amazing job creating these things. And she also has worked with us on a few traditional books, but we love working with her and bringing these big, beautiful images to life.
Okay, now let's gush a little bit about on you yourself. Tell me about your background and what you bring to the team. I'd like to know more about you as well.
Well, I'm an unlikely book person. I've always loved books, but in Orange County, California, there's not a lot of book publishers. I actually started my career doing copywriting, proofreading, and marketing for what is very big down here, which is medical device companies, health insurance, Medicare, all of that good stuff. The bread and butter of Southern California. But I got a really good opportunity to work on an imprint, a very small imprint that was run by Entrepreneur Media. Entrepreneur Press was here. It was local. I got in on the ground level. I started off from the very beginning as a marketing specialist and then just kind of worked my way into learning all the bits and pieces in an industry. Really got into the print side of things, learning about the fonts and learning about the types of paper and the trim sizes and the covers and inventory management and creating book statements and book reports. So I very much had my hands in everything operational, which allowed me to kind of look at a book as a business product. So now that I'm working with individual authors, And those who are looking to create that next chapter in their professional careers and create books that really aren't just, sharing more information about what they do, what their business is, what their thought leadership is, but we make sure that the book itself is viewed as a product and that it has a marketing strategy around each and every one of their avenues. Essentially becomes a vertical in their businesses. So it just kind of blended my love of the operations side of things and writing, because I do a lot of the copy, marketing, and writing and SEO strategy for the retailers. So being in this position allows me to have my little fingers in everything, and that's really my happy place in book publishing.
Okay, so I'm a musician, so I'm going to give a little segue here. When I go to see a band live, I'll go with my wife, and she's loving the music. She's grooving, she dances, she's having a great time. She looks over to me, and I'm just kind of standing there watching. She's like, "Can't you enjoy this?" But as a musician, I'm trying to figure out, how do they do that? Or,
Right.
I want to see their hands so I can watch what they're doing, so I can go home and learn that. And sometimes we'll go through an entire show, a concert, and I'll walk out and she's like, "Did you even enjoy yourself?" I'm like, "Oh, I got
So
so much
much.
great stuff out of that." And I don't know, for you as a reader, do you kind of have a hard time shutting off business and just enjoying reading now? Or how does that work for you?
I do. In fact, most of the books that you see behind me are business books, nonfiction books, and I'm always looking to see how other publishers are creating their content so that maybe we can take an idea, run with it, or enhance it. And so when it's books, 9 to 5 business books, I've actually found myself, in order to disconnect, and I'm, doing house chores or going out running errands, I make it a point that all of my audiobooks are actually fiction and nothing book businessy related, because it's the only way I can actually enjoy a book these days. Otherwise, I'm just sitting there and I'm analyzing everything. It's like, okay, well, that's a really cool strategy. And I like the way that they did this infographic and this and that. So it's always business. I mean, I love it. So
Yeah, so there's also a balance there too, between having the actual copy in your hand and being able to, go through and feel the book, hold the book, and
right,
I love that part. But then the other side of it is, we're busy people, and if I can throw an audiobook on while I'm doing something, I feel like I'm not wasting my time. Like, I'm actually growing as well, and I can stop,
right.
rewind it, right? I can pause it, whatever. So for you guys, for Broad Book Group, how is there an audio book component? Or, because I speak to a lot of authors and they're struggling with this. They don't know the first sweet thing about, I've got this book, I'm done, I'm published, but I'd love to do audiobooks. I just don't know even where to start. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yes. In fact, we love a few things here. Let me take a step back. We love a good audiobook. I think it's a really good opportunity to create something that is going to be easy for people to ingest while they're, going about their day. They're going out and making sure that they're getting their 10,000 steps, but it also gives you an opportunity to enhance the conversation. So there are a few options to create an audiobook, and you can very much do this working with like an audio production company, recording something in your own home, as long as you have the right setup. And I love that ACX does have the step-by-step setup that they're interested in having, so that your formatting and all of that is exactly the way they want it. But what I would definitely recommend doing and standing out from the crowd in terms of an audiobook is consider this to be an opportunity to take the book content that you've printed and maybe add in additional value. So everyone knows that a book takes, close to a year to actually finish and get printed and out there. So, and there may be some things that you weren't able to add to the printed book. Or maybe there's something that is a conversation that you couldn't just fit it in. It's a really good opportunity to have like additional chapters, or, have a Q&A with the author if the author is not the one who is reading it. Because, a lot of the times you want to hire a narrator or a voice actor to read it, because you're just not the best voice for audio, and that's okay. But we definitely recommend creating an audiobook, working with a company that has this type of, this type of, I'm at a loss of words.
I love it. I love it.
It has this type of expertise into them. So earlier I was mentioning, work with cover designers and work with people who this is what they do. So, not just going to someone on Fiverr because they have some audio recording company,
Right.
and they're specific to podcasts. Make sure that you're finding people who are specific to audiobooks because it is a science behind it.
Yeah.
The same thing goes with books. When you're working with a graphic designer, it's a graphic designer, but what are they good at? Are they good at social media graphic designing? Are they good at cover design for a magazine? You have to find the right fit for you and finding the right people for you. One of the things that we're actually in the middle of doing right now is working out partnerships with an audiobook production company. So what we're doing a lot of is there is the idea that our authors want to hold their IP for the physical book and the ebook. But then when it comes to an audiobook, it is more time intensive. So what we've decided to do is open up a new branch in terms of broad book group services, where we're working with the authors to represent their subsidiary rights. So again, thinking like a traditional publisher, but making it a little bit more hybrid in that we are taking what is the norm and then we're breaking it apart to make sure that the author is really benefiting from everything. So subsidiary rights are actually a very interesting thing for traditional publishers because it's another avenue for them to make more money to build up revenue against this big thing. Most of the time, the publisher will take on the cost of the cover design, the print run, the ebook conversion, all of that, but they tend to reserve the audiobook and the translation rights and world rights, etc., because what they're going to do is they're going to turn around and say, okay, I'm going to sell the audiobook rights to Tantor Media or Gildan Media. And what happens is that then they are going to get an advance as the publisher, and then the author gets a percentage of that advance. What we then want to do is like, hey, there's so much more opportunities for your book. This is likely going to be a very hot topic in Germany and Australia and X and Y. We can work with publishers that are local in that area that can take your content and make it very specific and make it marketable to that market. And it's something that in the US, you don't think about it, but in the US, you're working to make a piece of product or a product, sellable for the people that you're used to talking to. And even though it's Australian, we all speak a form of English. They market things a little bit differently. So that's something that we like doing. We like to make sure that your book is becoming as profitable for you as possible.
Nice. Okay, so back to my music references again, because that's kind of who I am. If I go into a music store and I see somebody struggling and they can tell it's their first time ever playing the guitar and picking out a guitar, and they look to me and they're like, "You play guitar?" I'm like, yeah, I've been playing for 42 years. They're like, oh, I have a question. Can you help me with picking out a guitar, or how do I play this chord? And I could easily go way above their head and start rattling off stuff that makes their brain kind of go, is he still talking to me? I don't think he's talking to me. Right? Because he's I don't even know what he's saying. He's saying words, I don't know what they are.
Right.
Or I can come down to a level where I can explain it in a way that encourages them to pursue music. Right? So I have a choice in that moment. So for a new author listening to our podcast today, we have a choice of going super high level and making them go, I have no idea what's happening right now. I just want to write a book. Can someone please help me? Right. Or we can come to a level that we're not speaking down to them, but we're speaking on their level, saying, okay, you're ready to start. Here's my suggestions. Don't go this way because that's going to be hard for you down the road. Try this path, because we've worked with people, we've given them some advice and they followed our path and they're successful. So I would love to know from you, for the new author that's listening, what is one of the paths that you would suggest, based on your experience and all the great stuff you guys do, that new authors should should avoid, in your opinion, it's opinion, but you should avoid this and maybe go in this direction? What is one thing to avoid and one thing to embrace as a new author? What would you suggest?
One thing to avoid as a brand new author is somebody who has, you've got an idea, you've got a book idea, and you really are interested and you're going down the road of writing an outline. I would highly suggest avoiding, as much as I love its flexibility, I love, being able to go on here, but I would highly suggest avoiding KDP, which is Amazon's self-publishing route. And the only reason I'm saying that is if you're going at it alone, there are a lot of little bits and pieces that they try to make very easy that really can become roadblocks later on. So I would avoid KDP if this is your very first entry into it. And if you are looking to write a full book, and by full book, I'm talking about, your 40 to 60,000 word book about a topic that you are interested in teaching others. That would be my thing to avoid.
Okay.
In terms of where to start, my favorite thing is having a plan. So, a lot of the listeners right now will likely have heard of something that is called a book proposal. And a lot of people are like, okay, well, I'm not there yet to have a book proposal. But in reality, a book proposal will help you get to that point where you have a manuscript. And book proposal sounds very intimidating because usually you hear that in the terms of like, I have a book, I have a manuscript, and I'm getting ready to pitch an agent. But in reality, if you break down what a book proposal is, it's actually a book plan. It's a roadmap. If you look at a book proposal in the sense that of what the bits and pieces are that they have, it will allow you to organize your thoughts and say, okay, here's what I think this book is about. Here is a section where I write who the right, target audience is for my book. And if you start thinking this book is for everyone, then no, start again. The book, it has to be specifically for one person that you're thinking about. That is your target audience. And there's a cluster of people. It's a niche audience. It could be, but you have to talk to somebody in order for that story to really resonate. You have to start thinking about the marketing plan because, you're thinking probably like, why do I need a marketing plan if I don't have a book or a marketing or a manuscript yet? The reality is that you're thinking about it now. Then you need to start considering yourself an author and talking about it to that audience. I would definitely start working on a book proposal sooner rather than later. It gives you the entire outline for your path. And when you're down the road, 3 months into it, 6 months into it, and you don't know where you are, how much you've done, you go back to your book proposal and you start reminding yourself of all the reasons why you're doing this book and the value it can deliver to that audience or why it's going to appeal to that target audience.
Okay, so let's jump back for a second to an example then of a roadblock through KDP that you're like, that's going to hurt when that happens and that pops up for you in the future. Can you give me just like one example of something you've seen?
Right. So KDP is actually really, like I said, it's great in my opinion, it's great if you've done this a few times. If you're going down the road and you're like, I got a cover, I got back cover, I know what I'm doing, I've done this a few times, it's perfectly fine. I even recommend it, if you're planning on doing white papers, something that's short, quick, and easy, low grade, you're not planning on actually printing something. The thing that I would say is when you're going down the KDP format is that it's not allowing you specifically to represent your book as a traditionally published book. And I realize that we're talking hybrid model versus self-publishing, but we want to make sure that every book that you publish is released with the same caliber as a traditionally published model. And that is something that I would recommend maybe going into an Ingram Spark model, because Ingram Spark allows you to set yourself up for worldwide distribution, an actual print on demand that looks and feels really, really great. and I'm being biased here because I do love Ingram Spark.
Yeah.
I love Ingram as a partner, and I know people dislike it, but I do think that it gives you a lot more capability to get your book in a worldwide manner that doesn't alienate the other retailers. And when I say alienate, I really do mean alienate because when you're publishing Amazon only, it gives off a message that, the indie bookstore down the street
Right.
isn't able to get your book into the market, isn't able to take this on, or, Booktopia down the road in Australia might not pick it up. Amazon is very, the big giant in the room, the big elephant in the room. We can't avoid it. We know that Ingram Spark still distributes to Amazon. But there is something a little bit more tangible and a little bit more traditional about going with an Ingram Spark route, in my opinion, in my very biased opinion.
Well, hey, that's why you're here. I would love to. I love hearing this because it's going to help somebody. Okay, I have a question. Hands up.
Mm-hmm.
Ebooks.
Yes.
Love, hate, good, bad. I hear a lot of people who say, "Hey, I'm just going to write an ebook and click, 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 post. I'm done." Sounds really easy. I don't know. Sometimes easy is not the best thing. I don't know. Can you please help me with this?
Ebooks. Okay.
Yes.
So they're easy in that you got to think about them like a white paper. And I don't know if white paper is something that is a wide known term, but in today's world, it really is your downloadable, the thing that you're offering up your audience to learn more about what you do. And it's just really a snippet. I would say most ebooks that you're just planning on doing really quick and easy can be done maybe 15, 20 pages of an ebook, quick, short. And this is actually one of the things where I'm like, I would go with a Ingram Spark route, because that Ingram Spark route if you were to go ahead and set up your ebook as an Ingram Spark book, you'll be able to put it up on Nook, iTunes, Google Play, all the different formats that allow people to, expand, because you do want to expand your market. That's the whole point, is, getting your book into the hands of as many people as possible. I feel like Ingram Spark does a much better job of doing that. In terms of getting an ebook up and ready, I would suggest one big idea and a few takeaways. All you really need is a cover, a table of contents. And the table of contents is really important, I think, because it allows you to consider the title of each section. And I'm talking to you, the nonfiction folk out there who are interested in a business book.
Yeah.
When you're considering even as small of an ebook, consider what you're naming every chapter or section, because everything in an ebook becomes SEO and marketing. Everything. When you think about an ebook, for those of you that have your Kindle or your Nook, when you're going onto the table of contents, those table of contents are hyperlinked. Which means that the metadata that's embedded in the EPUB, well, we're getting a little high level here, but that's usually what the conversion process looks like. Those highlighted items pull up as metadata, which is really just keywords in the system that allows that ebook to be found on any of these platforms. So very much be mindful of what you write or what you select each chapter title to be, and even your ebook title. Even if it's an ebook and you're not going to print it, it's a lot of value in that, in creating content that is going to be searched. So for instance, if you are looking for a book on how to, set up your 401k, something very, very simple, right? Setting up your 401k or, your retirement plan. Most of the time, if you're a financial person who are creating an ebook that is going to be a lead generator for you, you again are thinking about all the bits and pieces, all the questions that people are going to be asking. So you have to weave those in to the way that your table of contents looks like. to what the content inside of your material is, because all of that is basically what the retailers are looking at as they're uploading your book and reading all that metadata in the back end.
Right.
So sneaky little ways of getting some good marketing in.
This is like a master class. I'm like, I love this. So this, again, we talked about this before we hit record. We do want to talk now about your online course and the things that you offer. Because I'm on your website. It's a beautiful website, by the way.
Thanks.
So I wanted to give some value to the people that are listening and go, okay, so Vanessa and her team know what they're talking about. I'm in. So that's the idea. So take us through the website, broadbookgroup.com. I'm on there right now. The online course. What happens? I hit yes, I want to be a part of this course. What's going to happen when I submit my payment and I'm ready to go? What's next?
Well, the next part is that you're going to walk into a classroom where Jen Dorsey, who is the instructor, and she is actually an instructor. She teaches rhetoric at the university. She's actually a book doctor, like I mentioned before, but she teaches this course because editorial is her background, and she is the one who's reading all of those book proposals that we mentioned. Mm-hmm. And she's making the decision on whether or not your book is going to get a chance to get to the next level at a book publishing house. So in the course, it really is 8 modules. She breaks down what a book proposal is, why you need it, how to sell your book essentially to that publishing house. But what's important here is that you're essentially writing and rewriting your elevator pitch. You need to exactly know why you're selling this book. So while you're, putting it in front of somebody else, you're kind of teaching yourself on how to do it. We show you what to include and what not to include in your book proposal, and how to showcase your writing and your marketing skills, because that's actually almost as important as what your book is intended to be, is how you're going to market it. Because if you think about a book in, the format that it is for a self-published author or even a traditionally published house, it's a product and it needs a good marketing plan, period. And that's why I really, really love it. We're able to get you in a situation where you're thinking about the purpose of your book. Why is this going to be specifically important for your audience? We break down the marketing section of it and the writing section of it, and we help you stand out from the competition. We've seen a lot of book proposals out there. And so this course, like I said, it's the book proposal, but it's also your roadmap to making sure that you are on track and that your book is exactly what you intended to start writing. So even if you're not there yet, starting with a book proposal course is really going to help you outline your roadmap to make sure that your book is going to be up to snuff when it comes to getting it ready to go when published.
Okay. So is it all self-taught, like as far as like the exercises and stuff, or are we doing this in a group setting? Kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it is self-taught. So each module is, if you get a video course and you get some downloads. So it is very much at your pace.
Good.
Because it can be overwhelming, and most of us have a full-time job and most of us are writing on the side, right?
Right.
So while we do have this 8-module course that is self-taught, at the very end of it, we do want to make sure that you are seeing the book proposal in the best format that you need it to be, either for yourself or for a publisher or for a literary agent. So we do offer up one-on-one afterwards. So you can sign up for that. That is a separate fee, but then Jen Dorsey or myself will go through it and we'll give you line by line item feedback where it's like, okay, we see that you've got this, but let's this. So that becomes a little bit more personal. Yeah. If you are ready to make sure that, if you're ready to send it into that literary agent, right. You're just like, I'm ready to go, let's do it, but I need eyes on this first. Mm-hmm. So you're not left alone.
Yeah. Okay, great. And again, this is a podcast that's going to live in the future as well. So we won't talk pricing specifically, but I'm looking at the website right now and the price is very reasonable to do this. So amazing.
It is.
Very good. So if people are thinking, oh my gosh, this sounds like it's going to be X number of dollars, I would tell you that you're way off. It's really affordable. It's something that you can sign up for. And I love the fact that you can do it at your own pace, that you're not going to feel like you're rushed or you're like, I can't keep up, and not
Right.
get value out of it. So I love that.
Right. And we did that intentionally because we saw that there were a lot of groups that were not being represented as much. And we know that there's just that ceiling. We like to look at a book as the low entry cost to something. Books are educational. More and more books need to be out there, especially right now when we're living. I mean, I'm in the United States, so you probably are hearing all the book bans and everything that is happening. So we're very much against that. We want to make sure that as many people have the tools as possible, which is one of the reasons why we make everything as free as possible or as, easy access as possible, which is another reason why we ourselves created a podcast where we talk about these things. We bring on experts.
Okay.
We bring on experts to talk about okay, what are the issues that we're seeing in this case? We have people from, PR and publicity and marketing people and people who are, interested in, or actually people who have written their books that we've helped on one way or another that have gone out to publish with a Harper Leadership, etc. So we bring on a lot of different voices in the podcast. So I definitely recommend people listen to it. It's the Pub Date Podcast. It's on our website up at the very top. But we also have some resources, and I'm looking at our website and seeing that I don't have that link. But if you scroll all the way down, there's a resource section where we have a checklist. So it's like, am I ready to write this book? Am I not? So we have a really quick checklist to see whether or not your book idea is an actual book.
Nice.
And it has things like, can I write about this topic for X number of words without being repetitive? And that's probably when you start thinking okay, am I being repetitive? Is this more of an ebook? Is it a shorter format? Is it, then you start going down those rabbit holes because publishing can be whatever you want it to be. But then we also have, going from your book idea to a published author workbook, which is a little bit more of a synthesized look at what your book proposal course looks like. So I highly recommend for you to go down to the resource section and take a look at that. And what we did is, we created this is your brainstorm idea, and every section of this download is actually paired up with an episode from our podcast to kind of dive in a little bit more, give you a little bit more feedback, resources from other of our guests. So people who are authors, people who are writing memoirs, really making it more a holistic look. So you get the coaching without having to feel the pressure of oh, that person seems like they've got their stuff together, which I know can be quite intimidating in a group setting sometimes.
Right.
I know I'm intimidated by that. So I'm an independent, student kind of thing. So I love this format.
Awesome. Okay. So before we go, we talked about some tips on starting. What about for the author that's joined us for this discussion and they're done, they're ready, they're published, they're ready to promote? I'm biased to podcasting, so I love hearing that you have a podcast. That's big points there. Woo woo. For this podcast, it's only 14 months old. I've had 170 guests in 14 months.
That's really good.
Right. So
that's really good.
Amazing people coming through, which is awesome. So in addition to being a guest on a podcast, which is one thing I promote, I think it's great. Anything else that we can do as an author ready to promote our book? Where should we go? What should we do? We got the books. We're done. We've worked through you guys. We're all set to go. What do we do now? Because one thing I said to one of my authors was, you run this race of writing a book. You think you're running to the finish line. And as soon as you get there, you read it and it says start. And you're like, oh,
right.
Now I'm starting you're living the next chapter, podcast name inserted at every stage, including promotion. So what do we do? What do we do now that our book is done?
You keep running. You keep running toward that end of the race, because you're right. It's a constant run, and it's really not a sprint, it's a marathon. So the book is supposed to be with you at all stages, in my opinion, is that you make sure that you have a splash page, which splash page is really just a landing page on your website, of a website, and promote the crap out of your book. Yeah. Everywhere that you go, promote the crap out of your book. Podcasts are great. Getting in front of print media is very, very difficult. What I found was, offering up the book to those who are already writing about the content that you've written about. Say, hey, I've got this. I'm more than happy to send you or have you publish an excerpt from my book. I know a lot of authors are very skittish around sharing too much of their work, but in reality, we live in such a go media world where if you publish a little bit of your book here, a little bit of your book there, there's no chance that somebody's going to just read the entire book online. So make as much of it as accessible as possible and continue to talk about it. One of the big things that I really love doing, and there's never really an end date and a start date, but one of the really big things that I love doing is going to other authors that have written complementary content like your book, right, and saying, I would love to talk to you. Let's go up and have a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live. Social media is the bread and butter of authors these days. We just had a guest on last week who is she's been in HR for the longest time, and she just started on TikTok. Never be afraid to get on a platform, even if you don't know what you're doing. Because if you don't know what you're doing, that just makes it a little bit more fun. Forget about having all of the bits and pieces in place. It's just about getting the conversation going. Right. And that's exactly what she did. She started off just a few recordings, and then she has like 1 million followers on TikTok over HR and career. And it was unlikely for her. Yeah. And she's just out there kind of living her best life because she's like, you know what? Once you let go of that fear about all of it, which we all have, even I have it right now. I'm like, oh, should I be on this podcast? I don't know. Just do it. Because if you don't do it, you've already done the hardest part, which is writing it. You got to talk about it. And that should be the most natural part of it. And it takes practice, lots and lots of practice. So be sure you're constantly doing it.
Vanessa, like if you have any thought about, should I be on this particular podcast with me? You're blowing me away with the knowledge and the openness and your heart to help authors. I didn't really know where our conversation would go today, but you've brought so much today that I'm just like, I said at the beginning, you're going to want to sit down, grab a coffee or tea or something and no paper and a pen, because it's going to be great. And those who didn't heed that advice at the beginning are kicking themselves, or they're going to re-listen to this again, because there's so much great content in here to help authors and your willingness to come on and do this. I don't want to let you go. If there's something that we haven't touched on and you're like, I really, and we hang up and you're like, oh, I wish I talked about A, B, or C before we say goodbye. Is there anything else that we need to pour into authors today to encourage them from your point of view?
I would definitely say that don't be discouraged just because somebody else has written a book or somebody just released a book that it was similar in light of what you were thinking your book could be. Because the truth is that there is nothing new out there. There just isn't. Granted, Chat GPT, we'll get into that. AI is always creating something new, but they're always creating something that's already been out there. And really what's going to sell a book is you as the author. You're selling the book, your personality, your way of doing things. It's another reason why if you're in business, people hire you versus the competitor. Right. Because they like you. So don't be discouraged if, so-and-so Simon Sinek just put out a book and it was just almost the same idea that you had. Keep going, because there's a good chance that your idea is going to evolve and you still have your own audience that is going to resonate with what you're doing. So don't let anything or anybody discourage you.
And find a good team to work with that has your back and will help you through and answer all the questions. Get an online course that will show you all the steps, right? And listen to the podcast as well. Vanessa, it's so great to have you on. Broadbookgroup.com is the website. Links are going to be in the show notes. Again, beautiful website, so well laid out. You show up on the page and you know exactly what to do next. And that's what I love about a great website. So, and your team sounds exciting and amazing. And I'm going to be listening to the podcast. And I'm really happy to have you here. Thank you so much for making time for us, all of us that have been listening today. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. And if you ever need to go down a rabbit hole on book publishing, you know where to find me.
Awesome. And if you ever have an author that's like, hey, Vanessa, I'm having a hard time finding a podcast to come on and talk about my book. I've been on yours, Vanessa. I love it. But is there another one?
Oh, yeah.
I would love to have them as a guest, just so you know.
I have a list. I actually have a list of people that I'm like, I should probably send them to you. So I'm glad that that's open. So I'm going to put that together and I'm going to get them on your show.
I would love to feature any of the people, especially if they've gone through the course and they've worked with you guys, and they can speak on from their behalf as well to talk about the great services you guys offer. I'd love to get their perspective as well, because they've worked with you and they understand what you do. So that would be another nice insight to bring to the podcast.
Absolutely. Count on it.
Okay. So everyone go to the show notes, go to the podcast as well, and make sure you go there right now because you're already listening to a podcast. Click the link, go like, subscribe, follow, share, and share this episode with an author that you think could really benefit from our conversation today, because, you know, there's authors out there that are just sitting there looking at a blank piece of paper or a blank computer screen going, what did I just get myself into? And this podcast right here will help you. So, Vanessa, thank you so much. Thank you for subscribing and following. And you're listening this far in the podcast, so you are my best friend. I'm sorry, but you are now my best friend. So welcome. Nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. LivingTheNextChapter.com has a link on the website to our Facebook group. Are you on Facebook? Probably. You can go there and you can actually interact with our guests. You can talk to them. You can hear more about their journey, about their books. You can speak to them directly. You don't need me. You can come right over to livingthenextchapter.com, click on our Facebook link to our community. You can talk to other listeners of the podcast from around the world who are on Facebook. And again, speak with our guests. Don't you want to speak to the guests you just heard from? Yeah, you can do that on Living the Next Chapter. Go over there. There's links to our Facebook group, and you're welcome to join. Thanks for listening.